Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Confidants, I just want to tell you about a book that I've written called Fool Me Twice. It's my memoir and it's a story of how I was scammed and assaulted while online dating. It was a difficult book to write because I really had to overcome the shame of my choices. But I wanted to do it so that I could help other people not get caught in the same trap that I was. At the end of the book, there are a whole lot of suggestions of what people need to look out for and how they can date safely online. My book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and it's also in Hong Kong bookstores. Here is a promo for my book. I hope you enjoy it.
From life on a farm in rural Australia, where wide open spaces made a young woman yearn to know what was beyond her country town. She moved to the city, became a mother, and found her dream career which took her across the world. But still, something's missing. In her search for love, she traveled far, trusted deeply. She wanted so badly to find someone that she almost lost herself in the process and learned some hard lessons along the way. Fool Me Twice, a new memoir by Jules Hannaford. Available on Amazon.
Today I'm here with Teressa Siu. Hi Teressa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
So it's really exciting to have you here. Tell me a bit about your cultural background.
Well, the way I like to describe myself is I am Chinese by birth, American by citizenship, and a global citizen by experience.
Oh, that's cool. There's more and more global citizens coming these days, isn't there? Because it's becoming a smaller and smaller world. We're so connected.
Exactly. For me, it's just all about traveling, work experience, and working outside of, where I grew up.
Why did you decide to become a journalist?
To be honest, I wanted to be rich and famous.
Brilliant. Did you really?
Mm-hmm. And I wanted attention. Really did.
That's awesome that you admit that, because a lot of people wouldn't admit that.
Well, why not? It's okay. It's just the truth. And I think it took me a long time to recognize that that was part of my identity crisis or growing up. That's okay. I just thought, yes, I love the whole idea of being on TV. And I was very specific. I wanted to do TV. It was broadcasting. Looking back, yes, it was a career interest and it was a passion. But part of that was really knowing myself and getting to say, hey, this is the way I could have some attention.
Did you feel like you got that straight away, or did it take time for that to evolve?
You mean to recognize that?
Yeah. Did you find that it took a while for you to get that recognition that you craved and that kind of fame that you craved, or did it come fairly quickly early in your career?
Well, it was that whole idea of being on camera. And get that anyway. It doesn't matter if there's 2 people watching or 1 million people watching. But I think what I really wanted was attention from my friends and my family. Yeah, I got it through that because it's a career that's really different, that's unconventional. As much as they don't say it, like the whole idea, oh, my sister's on camera or my daughter's doing this, it was all there.
You knew that they were really proud of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad was.
Did they have any reservations about you going into journalism as a career?
Well, let's put it this way, because we were immigrants to the U.S. Mom and dad were always busy just trying to make sure we're fed and clothed and just very basic stuff. They didn't really have the experience or the knowledge to discuss with us what our career paths look like or what we should do. I don't know how I got those ideas, by the way. It's like, okay, go be a journalist. But it was a really heartfelt thing. It was coming from within. My brothers who are older, of course, had some ideas that, hey, I should go into business, more of the easy money-making careers, or more of the conventional things like being a dentist, being a doctor, being an accountant. Mom and dad were just like, okay, if that's what you're going to study, because they probably didn't even know what it was. But I clearly remember mom saying, Teresa, you sure you're going to have to read the newspaper a lot? You're basically going to have to be a news junkie. I didn't really care about any of that and just go, I'll be fine, Mom. That was just about the discussion that we had.
Have you ever had any regrets about your career choice?
Oh my God, no, not at all. It's still so much part of who I am. Every step we take, every decision we make, it shapes us. And I'm so glad that I went against everything else and just trusted myself. It took a lot of commitment. It took a lot of hard work to get to where I wanted to be, being a reporter and then being on the anchor desk. It was a hard learning experience to know that it just doesn't take good looks and a good voice. It takes good writing skills, takes everything else in between. And it was a great learning lesson to really recognize that it isn't just a job about being pretty.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. There's so many layers to it.
Yeah. And I share so much of this with my students, with my friends kids that, look, you have to understand that substance is key here. That's part of the growth that I have to go through.
What's some of the journalistic work that you've done over the years? Because you've done so much. I mean, your CV is very long. What sort of work have you done in your career?
I wish I've done more, but I've also done a lot.
You've done loads.
I have, but I've also done the news reporting. I've gone to Kosovo in 1999. That was a huge thing. When my boss then told me, I nearly fell off my chair. That was huge.
Were you scared?
I wasn't scared. I did not know how to be scared then, because it's just one of those things when you're young, you're just like, hey, I'm going for it. I think I'm a really trusting person as well. If I'm given something, I'll just go. That's the way I am. I think that's the way I've always been. I get into trouble when I start questioning things.
Do you?
No, that's not good. Yeah, but those were big things. Yeah, and getting on the anchor desk, that was really big.
Where have you anchored? In Hong Kong?
Yeah, TVB Pearl. And I've done some work with cable TV English channel then.
Now you have your own TV channel, don't you? Lotus Live TV?
Lotus Live TV is my own company. I've decided to call it a broadcast house and a consultancy, but specializing in health and wellness, education and advocacy. So what the bigger thing I'm doing now is really utilizing my experience in TV, media, communication, education, health, everything else in between to actually promote wellness.
Is that a shift for you, or is that something that you've always done along the way? Or as you've grown older, have you found that it's a very important thing to you, that passion for health and well-being, that commitment not only to your work, but to your well-being, and that you've brought the two together?
I think it's the whole package of who I am today. Because you asked me, do I regret? No, because everything paved the way. And the health bit was always there. I grew up being really health conscious at home. We always had good food, healthy food, and we always had the things about traditional Chinese medicine. We had soups, we had remedies. I was always exposed to that. So everything who I am at home, culturally, and at work groomed me to be who I am today. And all the experiences that I had teaching, consulting, training, my goodness, is really boosting what I'm doing today. Before I saw it as an ambition, right? As an identity crisis, a need. It was a passion and ambition all at the same time. But today, what I'm doing for the last 5 years, it's more of a life purpose. Really, really serving the bigger community.
Oh, that's lovely. So you've really found your niche.
My life purpose, yeah. And it's a niche and it's everything that work all together, all packaged in one. It's wonderful.
When you talk about an identity crisis, when did that happen? What was that about?
I have no idea. I probably still have that.
Does it come and go?
No, I'm good now. I know who I am. I've known who I am for years and years, but I think it's all about growing, as you know, with your students as well. I think it's just part of that growth. Being at home, being the youngest. Who am I? What am I? And then culturally, being brought up in America. Do I belong here? And I never felt the sense of belonging there. And I speak Chinese. Where do I go with this? But I think it's really finding the true self. Really, I don't need attention. I have it all here. I think it's always knowing what you want to do. And that was part of the process, I think.
Do you feel like that identity crisis kind of was the stimulus for you wanting that attention and wanting to be recognized and out there? And then once you found yourself, your motivation or your purpose has shifted to well-being and wellness and health and education and all of that.
Yeah, and all of that reflects what I've been through, my personal journey, and then bringing all that out to empower others to be happy and healthy. With all the tools I have and all the expertise I have, how do I go design courses and workshops or my speaking engagements? How do I do it on TV to get all that out there to inform and educate the audience?
How do you educate people? Do you run classes? Do you run workshops? Are you guest speaking? Is it through your television or is it all of that?
Everything. I'm still on TV and in the media. The local newspapers have interviewed me about my recipes, for example, but they always come with something specific. And that's where the teaching and the course design comes into is, well, Teressa, we want specific recipes for people who work in the office, who will hate the humidity and the hot summer. There's no cooking in the pantry. Is it possible for you to come up with 3 dishes that are sort of cooking but uncooking at the same time?
Like raw food?
It could be cooked. The salads, maybe there's like a noodle salad or something, which I've created. Things like that. Or I'll get interview on TV. If there's some trend, say for China, like CCTV still gets me on board and go, Teressa, can you comment on this? So it's kind of like reverse role, but I would like to be back on the camera again and do what I used to do. Talk about health and wellness, lifestyle diseases, anything like that. And when I'm off camera, I speak on cruise ships.
Cruise ships?
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I know.
So what, you get invited to go on the cruise and then you talk about wellness and health and well-being.
Yeah. And I do have to design those talks specifically to what the client thinks their clientele needs. I do one on ageless happiness, do one on specifically the brain, but positive thinking. And I do one on beauty inside out, which talks so much, not just about the skin, because I am really talking about inner work. So everything begins in the inside. So nourishing the organs and then having good skin, but really understanding all of that through all my tools, yoga, movement, sound, breath, stillness, all the things that we need in this modern world to survive what I call how to be sane in this insane world.
That is really how people can manage stress and anxiety, isn't it? And our world is becoming busier and busier and busier.
Yeah, it is.
All of those things that you've mentioned are really almost fundamental to what we should be teaching young people in schools.
It is.
We should be starting there, shouldn't we? Yeah, we need you to come in.
Yes, please. I'm happy to come in.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
We do have some wellbeing programs for our students, which is great.
Yay. I'm so happy to hear that. One of the things that I want to get into is I believe in starting young. And it's also because of what I had. Not that it wasn't good. It could always be better and more holistic. I think it's also because of my upbringing that was so good that I like to see the younger people and at schools where they could start earlier, like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, everything about being that whole person that we are.
Did you have that as a child, or was it more just the good food and the living calmly kind of thing? Or did you have meditation and yoga and all of that as a child?
Oh, no. Mom and dad didn't know any of that stuff, but they knew about living a very simple life. And they knew about making things very simple. They're very deep. I'm not saying they're simple in that way. We've always taught really good philosophy about life. Gratitude, appreciating people, doing good. And one of my dad's mottos is, be good, do good, receive good.
Oh, that's nice.
I echo that a lot. I didn't realize how much of an impact he had on me emotionally and in what I do now that I quote him so much, because after he passed, Mom talks about that a lot. A lot of that deepness in there. We had good food. We lived naturally. We exercise.
You had the basic fundamentals, the building blocks that you
genes,
built on.
It?
Yeah.
It's DNA. You know, like my mom, she's 80 and she's very active.
Brilliant. My nan's 101 and she's still going strong. She's amazing.
My mom, if she can, she'll travel the world. She does. We've traveled together and she's a very good traveler. And dad was really active up until like the year he passed because he was just old, but he was in such good health.
Was he?
Oh, yeah. Everyone who came in thought he was in his 60s, but he was close to being 90.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. He kept well. He ate well. He did smoke for a bit. But then when he decides to quit something,
He can just do it.
oh yeah, just one switch. He's like, I'm doing this. So there was like a lot of that coming in the genes too, you know?
Have you kind of ever like smoked or drunk or done anything that was sort of unhealthy for you along the way? Have you always had this healthy mindset?
I always have. It was more like being righteous and doing the right things and being conscious, you know?
It's having a commitment to your health and well-being, isn't it?
That is.
Yes.
I knew that, but it was more so growing up was, okay, you know, it's bad to drink, which was helpful in the end. I would say I've had wine, but it's not a habit. It's a social drinker. I prefer not to do it because my body doesn't call for it. But if it does, then I would say, okay, you know, I'm going to enjoy myself. Never smoked, never done drugs.
Oh, that's
I've always
amazing.
done the righteous, conscious, healthy things, which is really helpful to where I've been and where I am today.
Have you done any sort of wellness coaching or training in this area?
Tons of it.
What sort of things have you done?
I'm actually an integrative health coach. I graduated from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York. I've been a yoga teacher since 2007. I started practicing yoga in 2001. I call myself a lifelong yoga student. I continue to learn and teach and evolve. I call myself a wellness consultant and a lifestyle educator. A lot of what I do is just all about life. A lot of it, I start with food because that is actually one of my specialties is food therapy. I could prescribe just about anything.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about what food therapy is?
In my sense of food therapy is like what I grew up with, I mentioned earlier, was soup recipes, remedies. For example, if you're coming up with symptoms of a cough, where do I go from there? But then if we had to go deeper, say, for example, if someone is prone to diabetes or someone is recovering from cancer, what would be the ideal food to help them recover and, in fact, sometimes reverse their conditions? That's what I call food therapy. It would involve what I do would come from the Chinese medicine perspective, Western nutrition, and a bit of Ayurveda, which I learned from my yoga science.
Ayurveda is very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The different categories.
Constitutions, yes.
And I've had is it called an Ayurvedic chart?
Yes.
I've had that done.
Like your doshas and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had that done and it was really interesting.
Yeah. And we have that in Chinese medicine, which I refer to a bit more, but they're kind of parallel. It works like that. But what I do is really tailor-made. Like it really is about who is that individual that I'm working with. I actually do a health assessment. It's kind of like a CT scan, but without the machine. You were going to give me a 7-day food journal of everything you eat. I would be able to look for some indicators of health. There's been cases where I found traces of like DNA, whether you're prone to, let's say, diabetes, because that's quite common, yeah, or obesity. And if I look at your food, I could tell, okay, well, there's a reason why you're gaining weight or getting water retained. It depends who I'm working with, but that's been a very interesting journey. And a lot of my clients that I've worked with, they come to me for nutrition because that's what I'm known for as well. So it's like, oh, Teressa, I want to eat healthier. Could you help me? But it also usually turns out to be more emotional healing, finding out some physical symptoms that are related to the emotions that they've been through. It becomes like a healing and coaching or counseling session.
That sounds so interesting.
It is really interesting.
You're really doing holistic healing.
Yeah, but people find that like, are you sure, Teressa? I'm like, well, only you can validate. Like I said, I'm getting messages from your food journal, your lifestyle habits, and everything else in between. You could tell me what I'm telling you is accurate or not.
Will you then make suggestions of dietary changes and how to live a more healthy life and stress release activities and things like that?
Of course, yeah. So it really depends where the client is at. Like I said, a lot of them come and say, I would just want to eat better. And so I said, okay, let's do the assessment and see. And then I said, well, then you can decide what you'd like me to help you with because I'm all about education and awareness. They have to make those choices for themselves. We do goal setting, visualization. A lot of people come to me for losing weight. And I go, okay, let's take a look. Are you really water retained? Are you actually gaining weight? A lot of those things come into place. Sometimes they're like, well, I'm not eating enough, but I'm exercising 2 million times a week. And I go, okay, we're falling off balance here. You got to eat to fuel your body to do what it needs to do. And if it's a struggle and it's off balance, it's not going to be balanced. We work on things like that. Like a lot of people just get that input output. It's really off and the body is tired. So it's not going to do the magic. there's a lot that comes into it, and there's a lot that I can do.
Interesting, because sometimes to meet with somebody like you just need somebody to spell out where the problems are and say, look, you need to cut back your sugar. You need to eat more fruit and vegetable. You need to do some exercise.
Exactly.
You need to do something mindful so that you're not so stressed. And all of a sudden you can get your whole balance back in shape, can't you?
Yeah, sure thing. And a lot of it is really, one, having that awareness, recognize it, and take action. I find so far that it is a challenge for a lot of people because a city like Hong Kong is very busy. And if they have a full-time job and if they have kids, it makes it really challenging. Part of what I do, though, is actually, let's say if I go into a corporate and say, let me provide you a toolbox where it's accessible, it's feasible. I do that with employees and say, look, this is a couple of yoga things that you could do while you're at work and throughout the day. I simplify things for people. So it doesn't have to be such a rigid thing that they have to follow and they have to go on a certain diet and things like that. I'm really, really not about that. It's more about making minor changes that are really easy to do. And they like it. It's so much easier. Maybe, hey, have a green juice once a week. Let's start with that so that you could get your body to a more alkaline. What if we just do a couple of yoga things where you could release a bit of repressed speech and maybe release shoulder pain because a lot of us on our phones are on our shoulders, and maybe release the hips because we're sitting a lot. Little things like that. It doesn't have to be rushing off to a yoga studio for a full yoga class every day. But it's okay because a lot of the corporates would actually subsidize their yoga memberships. And what I do is I come in and enhance. So I always see myself in an enhanced enrichment role where people just like Teresa's going to come in and add to you, whether I'm working with someone like a business partner or a corporate. It's always about adding. It's always about adding. What do you have missing here? I'm the missing link, and I'll come in with the knowledge and the wisdom.
That's where the tailor making or the bespoke element comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that corporations are recognizing that people are becoming more and more stressed and it's having a negative impact on their lives? And so they're making more of an effort to introduce people like you and activities like subsidized yoga so that they're getting better quality work out of their employees?
Totally. And I think I would like to see more of it. I think we're going to have more of this year, the next 1 or 2 years, is the whole idea of that when there is a large group of people. For me, for example, maybe selfishly speaking, it's just so much easier to reach out to the mass that way instead of just 2 people, 1 client. I'll do it all. And I've been doing that. But it's so much easier to go into a big office and say, okay, we're going to give you 30 to 50 people because that's how many people I'm impacting in one go, in one talk. And we're going to see more because I think the employers are actually, business owners are really, really recognizing that good health, good well-being, sound health just means better employees. And it makes sense because so many people spend so much time at work, and it makes sense to take care of them. Then whatever they bring outside of the office, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
whether they're going to be
absolutely.
negative, whether they're going to be all tired and energized, it all affects the people.
They're going to be more productive and
Exactly.
ultimately do a better job for the business that they're working in.
Yeah, like for example, like the cruise ships that I work with, they recognize the need that while traveling, their travelers could be healthy and they could learn something and take it home and use it. And this is why I'm there.
What's the response of the people on the cruise ships that you work with? Do they love it?
Oh yeah, they love it. I always say my youngest audience is like a 1.5-year-old because they come with the grandparents, right? And then the oldest one I had was probably in her 80s. And then I have people in between that are in their 40s. And I have some people that are retirees in their 60s. So it all varies, but they're all very enthusiastic. The ones who come, they'll come to all 3 talks.
What are your 3 talks on
So
the
I
cruise
did
ship?
Ageless Happiness.
What is ageless happiness? Is that happiness until the end?
I think where I am coming from is that we should and we can be happy at any age. That's why I call it ageless happiness. It doesn't matter if you're 1.5 or 80. We're entitled to be happy at any age.
Do you think that maybe kids and older retirees are happier than the people in the middle who are still working really hard and trying to make a living?
Yeah.
Like we're in the age where people are less happy?
Well, we could be happy, but I think it's our perception and interpretation. So that's where I come in with my own journey too, is to learn how do I adjust and stay happy and be happy in adversity or whatever it is, right? When you talk about kids, we have this thing in Chinese, they're just a white sheet of paper. They haven't been exposed to issues or problems. And then when you're older, you've gone through everything. You kind of have to just let go and go, okay, you know what? I think I'm just going to be happy and enjoy the rest of life, whatever it is I'm on earth, right? It really varies. There are people that are really zen to begin with. Maybe they were born like that. Some of us have to be purified. We have to go through journeys.
Yeah. And obviously, some of us need to get to a point where we realize that if we make these small changes that you're talking about, it can have a huge impact. I'm seeing it in myself at the moment. Like I'm making big changes in my diet. I've started exercising again. I'm sleeping better.
Yay.
And all of it is just making me feel so much happier and way less stressed and anxious, because I had a terrible year last year when I was writing my book. I was incredibly anxious and stressed because I had too much on my plate, and it was my fault. I took it on, but then I had to just get through it. And now I've really realized that I've got to limit the amount that I take on and look at the way that I'm living my life and look at my sleep and look at my health and well-being and look at all of the exercise and do mindfulness. Like I've started listening to a sleep app to get to sleep, and it's really helpful.
That's great. And I think it's good that you have that awareness and you're taking responsibility. It's like, oh my God, I'm really doing too much. And I think a lot of it is what I see in my clients, my friends, my family, perhaps myself sometimes, is prioritizing. What's most important? What's less important? And you just have to prioritize.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And to me, my commitment, which I've told you about, is taking care of myself. To do all the things that I'm doing, I must have a lifelong commitment to love myself.
You've got a commitment to loving yourself and a commitment to taking care of yourself. And do you have to stop yourself and remind yourself?
Of course.
And go, Teresa, you're taking on too much. Stop. Or we must go to Thailand and do some meditation and yoga.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty good. And I have to say, I'm pretty lucky that I have all the tools and experiences to get to where I am at today. I'm a pretty balanced person. But there will be days where I get too excited about helping people. And my friend the other day was asking me, Teresa, do you think you're sometimes too accommodating? And I say, well, yes, I am. But I do stop, like you're saying, is, okay, hang on, I'm doing too much here. I must do something for myself first before I take on more. I'm always aware of having the balance. Priority, first thing in the morning, no phone calls, no WhatsApp messages, gotta roll out bed, do my meditation, do my nature walk, do my yoga,
do
my
this
breakfast.
Every morning.
Oh, yeah.
That can have, like, if more of us did that, that could have a really, really huge impact on how we approach the whole day.
Yeah.
And how we feel.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can affect energy levels. It can affect your passion. It can affect your mood. It can affect your depression or anxiety, the way you eat.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Because when you do yoga or Pilates or anything like that, they naturally just want to eat more healthily, don't you?
Exactly. Because your body is having clean circulation. If you feed it good stuff, good thoughts, good food, everything, it'll just crave for more of the good stuff. We have days where we're negative and we have negative thoughts, and it's just going to feed on more of that. And we have to be really careful to say, okay, this is too much. We got to cut it and then change it around.
How would you do that? Deal with negative thoughts or stress if you did face it?
Well, lately it's called screaming at someone. Just visualize that person who's giving me the negative energy and go, rah! And I do that when I'm doing my nature walk.
Yeah, so you're not actually doing it at them.
No. I would not do that. I had to learn how to recognize my anger, the root causes of my anger, my temper. This is when I was years back. I still get angry. I'm not saying I don't, but very little. And when I do, and when it's been off balance, meaning I've stored it somewhere and it has to come out. Like this morning I did. I actually visualized that person in front of me and go, wah! And it was fine. It helped.
You felt better.
Yeah. And what really helps me is my morning walks. Seriously, I roll out of bed, take a couple glasses of water, and I go, because I live in the countryside, and that really helps me.
That's nice too. So do I. I know. It's lovely.
I need my nature.
You know what? I've got a rooftop and I don't use it enough.
You need to use it.
I don't just go up there and sit and listen and look and be relaxed.
Do yoga.
Yeah.
Do your sunrise yoga.
Yes.
That would be really good. And then when I come home, I do about an hour walk, or as long as I need to release whatever I'm releasing. But I mean, most days it's pleasant, unless it's like today I had a little bit of that. I'll come back and I'll do my Kriya and my meditation.
What's Kriya?
Kriya is something that I learned about 2 years ago with the Art of Living. This is an international organization, NGO, that teaches what we call the happiness program. So it involves breathing, rhythms, and then it ends with a meditation at the end or conscious sleep. And I've been practicing that for about 2 years now.
Can you go to like Kriya classes? Or?
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
so there's the short versions that you could practice at home. There's the longer versions where you practice in a community. And as you know, it'll enhance the vibration and positivity, whatever it is. And if you need to clean or clear anything, that is really, really, really helpful. I've been doing that. But otherwise, like sometimes I'll do my own yoga and then I'll end up with a meditation. So once I'm all relaxed, I just shut my eyes and it really helps. And that's what I tell people. Look, it doesn't really have to like be rushing to the yoga studio or taking a meditation class. Just sit home and be still and breathe. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And I do that sometimes, like if I'm in a taxi and if I don't feel like chatting with the taxi driver, if I really just need a moment of quietness, I do that when I'm in transit. Even when I'm on the MTR, if I had to just close my eyes and relax, I do it.
That's interesting because so many of us say, I'm too busy. I'm working all day. I can't find the time. I've got too many commitments.
That's just sad.
It's not true though, because you can find those moments and they don't have to be an hour. They can be 10 minutes.
Yeah. Or even 2 minutes. Let's start with even 1 or 2 and then work it up.
For the listeners out there, Teressa and I on International Women's Day, we were at an amazing event with lots of fantastic, wonderful speakers, and you spoke at that event really about your life, your journey, and about commitment. But one of the things that was there was the girl who did the singing and the OMs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, I've done it in yoga and I always loved it. But to do it at that level, I just found that that was something that I really connected with. Like it made me feel great. It's like I would never have thought to go and do that, but I'm going to go. She has Monday classes and I'm going to go and do this. I forget what it's called, but it's like a sort of a singing, omming kind of class. That's just something that I know that I will really love. And it's kind of like finding the thing that works for you, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever resonates with you. Like I tell people, my yoga classes may not work with you, but try it and see. And we could make adjustments, but find something that works for you. Like some people like want to go dancing. Dancing works for me too, but I need my quietness.
Yeah.
I like my slow yoga. I like my long stretches. I love my nature walks. And then I do a bit of my muscle toning. Those are the things I like. I like my time in the kitchen because the food is a huge thing with me.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I need to really get back to is
cooking?
Really caring. Yes, cooking and caring about what's going in my body rather than having it made for me or buying it or eating out.
You're saying it. Everything goes into our body. It goes into our cells. Whether it's a negative thought, it's a positive thought, it's a good breath, or it's a tight breath, it's a tense breath. What we eat, what we drink, the water, anything, and the people that are in our lives.
I was just going to say that. And the people that we're surrounded with. You've got to be surrounded by positive, kind, caring, loving people.
Totally.
But you said something earlier about loving yourself and your commitment to loving yourself. Why is that important?
Well, because everyone talks about fueling the tank and refueling it. If we don't love ourselves, where are we going to find the love to love others? And that's something I had to learn. You remember when I spoke for International Women's Day, I think I started my speech by saying we're so good at commitment. We're so good at committing to our jobs, to our careers, and as
helping others
because that's the way I was brought up, putting others first.
We're all very good at that, aren't we?
We are. I've done all of it. Again, it's that whole journey of finding myself and having the balance culturally. And as a contemporary woman, how do I do all of that?
Understanding that it's okay to put yourself first.
You must.
Yes.
Not even selfish. You must. And like I have a hard time just watching my mom and trying to understand that. But I think she's always been very good at taking care of herself. She doesn't depend on others, which is also great. I also watch her putting others way first before herself. We kind of had that discussion and learned that learning curve for the both of us as well.
It's interesting that she was doing that, yet you were still doing the opposite when you were younger and that you had to learn to put yourself first. You didn't pick that up from your mother.
I didn't understand it. I think when you get older, you understand things more. I think it was a little confusing for me. And then when I went home and spent time with her and dad, I was watching her. I go, oh, this is where I got all that from. She had a bit of both.
Oh, right. Okay.
But then there had times where she would do too much for others. we kind of learned from each other and had that discussion. And I think we're both good now. Like, whereas there are days like, Mom, you don't have to cook for the grandkids. She's like, why? That's my obligation. I'm like, they don't want you to cook. It was kind of like in our bones and our blood that we're like that. Habit? No.
We can all get into habit. Yes. And DNA. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And culturally as well.
Yeah. I've always taken good care of myself as well. But then as I was learning and healing and growing, my healer would say, Teressa, you do love yourself, but you need to love yourself even more. I go, what? I'm not exercising enough. I'm not eating well. No, you have to do more. I go, okay, what is more? Now it's like, okay, I see. The more is prioritizing myself first before anything else, committing to loving myself before loving others.
How can you do that if you don't feel like you love yourself? Do you think it comes from cooking yourself dinner and giving yourself that free time and looking after yourself and making time for yourself and giving yourself space?
Yeah, all of that. Growing up, I had no idea what it means to go get a manicure. That would have been one of the things that you do, right? Like girls do things like this. Go see a movie. Me time. Me time is such a big learning thing for me because I grew up in a really big family. Although I was quite alone sometimes, but I didn't really know what me time means because family time, we're always together. When you're married to someone, you're always together. When you're with family, you always eat together. You do everything together. But I had to learn that. And it helped because I lived away from home for so many years.
Even for married people, having that me time can then enhance your relationship when you come back.
Totally. Yeah. And with my girlfriends, I'm also very blunt and direct with them because it's like we're all sisters anyway. And even with my family now is, look, we all need me time. And funny enough, I learned that with Mom. When I go home, I'm like, hang on, Mom, I'm home once a year, but you're doing all your things the way you do them every day when I'm not here. Okay, interesting. So Mom needs her me time too, and she has her habits, and my brother's the same way. His wife is the same way. It's like learning to watch others and go, okay, where do I stand with all this? And where am I most comfortable? I've learned everyone needs their me time. Everyone needs their space, but when I'm with people, I really enjoy it because I'm really a people person, but I really have that good balance. And I had to learn it. Funny enough, like everything that I do is always with people. My talks, people. My coaching, people. My consulting, people. TV, it's always teamwork, people. And how do you find that balance and find that quietness with all those people and having your own space? I used to think that I have to talk nonstop when I'm in a group. I don't now. I just sit and listen, and it's so peaceful.
And that's a skill too.
It is.
It's a skill in itself to be able to sit and listen and hold space for others. And that's something I've had to learn doing this podcast. I have.
It's really nice, isn't it?
It is.
It's actually
really
nice having that balance, I think. We need to have a bit of everything.
Balance, there's another key word, isn't it?
Yeah, I would really love for people to really recognize that it's not selfish to love ourselves first. We must understand that the principle in it is we have to love ourselves enough to really have enough to give to others.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing because I think to be able to give is such a beautiful place to be.
What we've got to recognize is that we're not just our outer shell. We're not what we look like or our body shape.
No.
We are our heart and our soul and what we've got inside and what we've got to offer. And that's where the true beauty is. Yeah. That's what people really need to understand, especially young people who compare themselves to others on social media and start to feel bad about themselves. That's not what it's about. It's really about your inner being that's so important.
I think that's a really good point you're making. And I think it's so unfair that, unfortunately, the media is partly responsible for shaping the way we feel and see things about ourselves. And one of the things that I do is inspiring younger people, which I've gone through all that myself. Part of my identity crisis is, okay, I'm not comfortable with my body. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not this. I'm not this. I'm not this. I'm not enough.
Have you let go of all of that now?
Totally.
Right.
There will be times when I have a little bit of something.
Sure. We all have that every now and again, don't we?
It never ends, does it?
I'm hoping it does. I think it does. I think by the time you're 7, you don't care.
Well, no, it should be done by now. But some days when you're tired, and this is where it ties back to the whole idea. If you take care of yourself well and keep your battery fully charged, most times you will have less of that because it affects you, doesn't it? And staying positive and all that. But I think it really goes back to the whole idea that accepts ourselves and love ourselves the way we are. And like you said, is really looking at a person's soul and not all the physical attributes. It's always a bonus to have a beautiful face and a beautiful body.
But beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
Yeah, for some people I'll be gorgeous and for others I won't be, and that's life. Some people will like a very large body like mine, and some people
You're
will like a very
gorgeous.
small body
I'm
like
petite,
yours. Yeah.
And I learned to adore my petite body. Really love it.
Great.
Feel good. Feel sexy.
That's good.
I would never use the word sexy on me, but hey.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
You are sexy.
And my girlfriend say it all the time. What is the transformation and the aha moment I had? I was like, oh, I'm so over this, is because I was like, I'm next to a supermodel and I feel so great just standing next to her.
But do you know what makes you most sexy is your energy. It is your energy.
Really?
You've got the most beautiful energy that makes you just exude this warmth.
Oh, thank you.
That's what makes you so sexy.
But isn't that important is when we really take care of ourselves? And I remember one time, one of my colleagues from broadcasting days, we were catching up years and years later. And he goes, I still think you're cute. I'm like, what? And you know, I like to probe a bit. Just for fun, because we're great friends, right? And he's like, you used to walk into the newsroom like a lighthouse. I'm quoting him now. And I think that's such a great compliment. I go, how did I get that? And then there's been years where I'm like, I don't think I'm ever dark, but we all have a dark sides. And you go into those episodes where you're like, I really don't feel good about myself. And then when you get to that lighthouse again, you're like, I feel really good about myself. But it does take work.
Yes, and that's it. It takes the commitment, doesn't it?
It takes commitment, you know, and people ask me like, how do you do it, Teresa? I'm like, well, you know, I have to commit myself to feeling good, looking good so I could be a role model. Because if I speak of all these things and I don't look anything like it, I don't feel anything like it, it doesn't make sense.
It's not genuine, is it?
No,
exactly.
No. And I want to be authentic about everything that I do, even in my news reports and whatever that I do. I think I just want to be genuine about it.
Tell me, what is stillness in motion? I read this in one of
my company profile.
Yes, in your company profile. What is stillness in motion?
Well, it's exactly what we've been talking about. How do we be still? I mentioned one example was riding
On
the MTR, the bus, or walking through the huge crowds in Hong Kong, the hustles and bustles. How do you be still? How not to be rattled? And that's what really that workshop is about. I come in with a toolbox of it's yoga, calming the mind, enhancing positivity or positive thinking, a bit of that self-talk too. We talk about loving ourselves. Well, you can't love yourself if you're criticizing your body shape like I have, and I'm sure you've gone through some of it.
Absolutely. How can we stop that negative self-talk? Everybody does it, I'm sure.
A lot of it in my experience is really trying to live up to the expectations of others and to know that, you know what, it's not possible.
Yeah, let go of that.
Yeah, and like you said, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. You look great in your shape. I look great in my size. We're all just beautiful in our own ways. And that's something I had to learn. And, you know, and I come from a very competitive profession.
You do.
On TV.
Where it could be very, very easy to compare yourself to others and feel terrible.
Well, or others are comparing you.
Yeah.
You know, the news directors are constantly going, okay, she looks better. There's more of a sexual appeal, or she writes better. There's always comparison.
Is this true or not, that women in the media and in the news anchoring and journalism have an earlier shelf life than men? Because the audience won't accept aging women like they will accept aging men as a newsreader, for example. Do you think this is true or not?
Yeah, I think it's partly true in the old days more so, and mostly true in social media, because everyone does want to look at a beautiful face. It doesn't matter if you have it up here. People want that appeal. But I think times have changed. In a lot of newsrooms, news directors are looking for the more seasoned professional. Of course, if you have both and you age well, of course, it's nice. But I don't think that matters that much anymore. At least the way I look at it is different.
Do you think there's pressure to age well by having fillers and Botox and surgery and things like that?
There's pressure. I think in some newsrooms and in some professions, and I think a lot of individuals have that. I think the society, still we have stereotypes, we have media influence. Funny enough, you mentioned, because when I was speaking on the cruise ship, I was approached by a team of Botox doctors.
Really?
Yeah, and they kept pressuring me and tried to convince me to get Botox, and I just laughed because I said, do you not know who I am? And what I am. And he says, no, he looks at me and I said, you know, I'm a naturalist. You can't expect me to put something like that in my face. And while I work on anti-aging stuff as well, but I think what's important is just to be happy and glow from the inside out. Yes, I've had sensitive times with my laugh lines and stuff, but I think we're all going to have that. My teachers have always said, Teresa, what's wrong with your laugh lines? It means you laugh a lot.
Tell me a bit more about your teachers. Who are they?
I've had so many. My best friend is my mom. She teaches me so much. My sisters, my siblings,
that's lovely.
My late dad. I had no idea he taught me so much just by being who he is, because we don't talk a lot. Like traditional dads don't talk a lot, right? And I've been living away from home. And I've had healers, like I had one in Los Angeles. I think I learned a lot from Buddhism, churches. Everyone is my teacher, actually. My students have been my teachers when I taught at universities. Because they're younger, having a conversation with them is kind of like, oh, okay, that's your perspective. At this age, when I was your age, then my older friends had always been my great teachers. Women especially have been one of my greatest teachers. I did say my mom and my sisters, my sister-in-laws. Just every conversation to me is educational and inspirational.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to look at life because it is so true. We can really learn something every day and we're all lifelong learners, aren't we?
Yeah, and I've always been like that.
Yeah.
And then I think that's something that my parents have always provided, that philosophy is that you could always learn from someone, whatever age it is.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to think about life because there's so much that we can get from listening to other people. This is why I love doing this podcast so much, because I learn something every time that I interview somebody and I get inspired every time.
That's great.
I don't always action it, but I really do feel inspired in the moment. And I certainly am actioning stuff that I have learned because I'm making big changes in my life over the last couple of years.
And you've been through so much, like when I heard you speak and the way you come out of it. And I always say like, okay, you know what? I've been through the crap, excuse the language. And then now I've survived and I'm good. That's it, isn't it? We go through things so that we learn and we grow and be the better version of ourselves.
Yes, that's really what we can all hopefully aspire to.
And you know what I really love about now life where it is that I have so many amazing girlfriends whom I can call sisters. And one of the things that I was sharing with one of the sisters is I said, you know, it's so good that while I've come from a lot of the spaces where women are competing against each other or not helpful, that I have all of that. And I met every woman I met being back in Hong Kong have helped me in whatever way they can, one way or another. And I do the same as much as I can with others. And I think that's so amazing to see that we empower each other. We're here for each other. We support each other. We would look at each other and go, oh, you're so gorgeous. Instead of saying, oh, you know, you should put on a different outfit today. Ew, who wants that?
Yeah, it's about building each other up, isn't it? Not pulling each other down.
Exactly, and lifting each other, and that's so amazing.
I've just realized so much more recently how much I benefit from being surrounded by positivity rather than negativity.
Of course.
I really, really want that. There's some negativity that comes in my sphere, and I don't want it there. I think we've got to sort of set boundaries, don't we, to make sure that we're living a healthy life and that we're not being intruded on by things that we don't want.
Yeah. And it's that stillness emotion that you were talking about. It's okay, well, how do we protect ourselves? Not inviting it, not accepting it, and drawing boundaries, which is something that men and women can talk about, is where do I stand with things? I've been there. I've overdone it, overcommitted, overdoing things, over anything. It's that awareness of, okay, well, Teresa, how far do you go with this? When do you stop? When do you draw the lines? And what messages are you giving to people? We have to be careful. I think it really helps is what we've been talking about all day today is being positive and enhancing ourselves and having that commitment to take care of ourselves in the best ways possible.
How does that maybe be supported by a memory mentor? What is a memory mentor? I read that on your site as well.
I'm certified as a soul link practitioner. And what that means is I work with people's negative memories or feelings and emotions. There is a technique where we actually work on you, or we could teach you, that would neutralize the negative emotions and feelings to whatever incidents that you've been through or experiences. For example, clear shock with someone who's had a stroke. We could use this technique to neutralize negative feelings and emotions up to PTSD level. I got certified last year by my teacher from Australia.
Oh, that's really great.
This is a technique that it's going through the process of being the patent process by I guess he's a healer, Gary Sinclair in the US. Yeah, he doesn't live far from our hometown, actually. I think he's in San Diego.
What are soul links?
Well, soul links is what they call the technique. The memory mentor is people like us, the practitioners, we call them that. So the soul links is basically, let's see how to explain this. If you look at the body longitudinally, when we do the technique, we're actually cutting into the cells because we have to understand that the memories are actually stored in our cells. Everything that we experience is stored in our cells. By using that technique, we're actually going into the cells and slicing it apart and then releasing it outside of our field. Basically, in a nutshell, that's what it's doing.
How have you seen that impact somebody who you've worked with?
It's been good. Like, it's usually within a minute or two. It's very instantaneous.
Oh, how cool.
Once we neutralize those feelings and memories, it impacts you. It's negativity in your body and in your mind. Once you neutralize it, you feel lighter, you feel happier. Because what's the point of holding on to those negative things? I've been there. And I've had a lot of that experience of clearing, restoration. I've had a lot of work done on me mentally, physically. I've had experiences where my emotions have manifested into the physical, and I had to clear that and heal. And I had all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds so interesting. Gosh,
It
you've got
is.
so many strings to your bow, which brings me to my final question. What did it mean to you to be named one of the 50 outstanding women in healthcare in 2017? Congratulations for that as well.
Thank you. 2 more awards I didn't add to the profile I sent you was Hong Kong Women Leaders. It actually came from the same organization, and they were in Hong Kong, and they said, what about this, Teresa? I said, okay. And I actually nominated other women for the award that I believe. One of the ways to boost them onto the wellness stage is that they need to be recognized. And that's actually one of the things that I do under Lotus Live TV, or my mission now is to support the industry, support practitioners and get them recognized through media, whatever ways I can. I was just named 100 most impactful leaders. That was 2017.
Right. But recently.
2019. Yeah.
Great.
I haven't received the award yet because that was in India, because I didn't write it in that thing. Awards are not awards for the sake of my
ego.
No, absolutely not. And I made that very clear because when I worked in CCTV, I got all the awards that I could have never imagined in my life. It was just so funny. When I went to Kosovo, I never had an award for it. I mean, in school, like in the old days, I had awards, but they were little things, right? The way I see with these awards, I'm very humbled. And that I always feel that it's the universe saying, Teresa, here's one more thing that you could add to your credibility. Get out there and go do what you're doing because you're doing great.
Excellent.
That's the way I see it. I always tell people I don't need one more thing on my resume. I don't need a trophy on my bookshelf because those things don't mean anything to me apart from what I just said. People need to see what Teresa's doing so that they trust me what I do and they believe in what I do, and then they'll hire me for what I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Teresa, how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Do you?
Yeah. They can look at the show notes.
Yeah.
But how can they get in touch with you if they'd like to be coached by you, have wellness, do yogas, hire you for talk, education programs, workshops, cruise ships? You do so much. It's
I didn't
amazing.
realize you were promoting me.
I am now.
Thank you so much. Well, like I said, they could find me through you, or they could find me on LinkedIn. I have profiles, so it's just under Teressa Siu, is TRESSASIU. They could always message me there, or they could just find me on Lotus, LOTUS, life, LIFE.TV @gmail.com.
Fantastic. Well done. I know we've covered so much and I feel so inspired.
Oh, thank you.
And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. For my listeners out there, if you feel that this is something that you've benefited from and you feel that you've got a friend who might really love to listen to Teressa and some of her wise words of wisdom, please will you share this podcast with them? If you could rate and review us on iTunes, it'll be great for getting my podcast up the iTunes charts. Teressa, this has just been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And just congratulations for all that you've achieved and the impact that you're making on so many people with all of the amazing skills that you have.
Thank you.
You really are inspirational.
Really grateful.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.